What's up? Good to see you all on another interesting session today. Before we get on to the session, let me tell you why we're doing this because I see some new faces here. So we've been in the business for almost 2-3 years, but we've never really contributed anything to the community because we knew that almost 50-60% of our community members listen to podcasts and love watching webinars. So this 2020 paved us an opportunity to give back something to the community, and that's why we started this QAM Masterclass online webinar series. And one thing we were very sure about is this place needs to be a hub for someone who's getting started in testing and would like to pursue their career in the testing. So we ended the season 1 with 8 classes, and here we are in 2021 with season 2 with better insights, and there are more interesting topics to come in the next months. Our guest today is Katya Aronov, automation engineer at Trax Retail. Prior to that, she was with AT&T and ex-Libris. Today, we're going to learn everything about the core values of efficient automation. We'll also have a Q&A towards the end of this session. If you have any questions related to automation, please go ahead and send them across in the chat, and we'll try to cover them all. So yeah, the stage is all yours, Katya. Go ahead.
Thank you, Shivam. So let me just share my presentation. So hello, everyone. I appreciate your taking the time to be here today. My name is Katya Aronov. I was born in Russia and I live in Israel for the last 30 years. I started my career back in 2000 and I've been into several roles since then. During the last 10 years, I work as automation developer. On a personal level, in the past couple of years, I find high interest in portraits photography. And here are some of my favorites ones. But despite the astonishing eyes of this Bedouin woman, I'm not here to talk about photography today, but to share with you some of my lessons learned from implementing automated testing in several projects over the past years. So in this presentation, we will see why automation is an essential milestone in development cycle. And we will also review some of the common pain points different companies face while implementing automation. We will define what outcome efficient automation should provide and how it can be achieved. I'll elaborate in details about what should be considered while evaluating automation tool. And finally, I will name some of the best practices which are important to follow to establish and maintain effective automation. As Shiva said, afterwards we will have the Q&A part, and I hope that by the end of this session, you will gain deeper understanding about what is required to make automation efficient and what you can do to increase quality of your company deliverables. So before we dive into the details, just to have everyone aligned, let me briefly describe what automation is and why it is an irreplaceable asset in delivering quality software. So as we probably know from being testers or from just being consumers of many applications, on a way to a customer, any software must be thoroughly tested. And not only the new features must be verified, but we should also make sure that the existing functionality was not damaged, which means that the further we go, the more we have to test. And manual testing just can't sustain this fast-growing scale and allow frequent releases. So this is where automated testing comes to help by performing repetitive, time-consuming, and human error-prone scenarios, while manual testing effort can concentrate on human intelligence-related flows, where people definitely do better than machines. If so, what are some of the pain points related to automation? Well, first, establishing automation takes time. While considering to invest in automation, it is important to remember that besides taking care of tests, automation development requires taking care of automation infrastructure, and there is often no available resources for such investment. let's keep in mind this pain point. For now, it is enough for you to understand that this clear separation of the two essential parts of automation. First is test creation and maintenance, and second is framework setup and maintenance. And we will see later on in this presentation how this investment can be optimized. The second pain point is that reports of many automation frameworks are quite difficult to understand. And so if only the person who wrote the test is able to understand the report upon test failure, it naturally creates a bottleneck in releasing clean software fast. So now let's review some of the core requirements automation should address to facilitate fast detection and recovery upon regressions. First, automation outcome should be reliable. Tests should fail only when there is an issue with the application, and they should pass otherwise. And it may sound quite obvious, but in reality, we all know that there are bugs in tests sometimes there are outdated tests, there are different flakiness issues. All of these lead to false negatives and false positives and causes automation to be unreliable. Second, it must be relevant, meaning only actionable items should be reported. And we will see later some techniques to assure each of these requirements I'm presenting now. Third, it should be easy to understand. It will help to find the root cause and solve the issue as soon as possible. Fourth, it should be stable. No matter how many tests you have, automation should remain reliable, relevant, and easy to understand over time. This is how you will be always able to spot regressions as soon as possible. Last but not least, automation feedback should be helpful not only for testers, but for all involved stakeholders. May it be your product owners, project managers, development team leaders, but most importantly, developers. And let me elaborate on this part. Having developers as part of test automation delivery will allow detecting regression upon code push rather than at testing stage. And this will eliminate QA bottleneck. Second, a developer knows better than anyone else what was changed in the code that he pushed and what previously expected behavior could have been impacted. And lastly, fixing a regression as early as possible will decrease the cost of a bug fix. So this is why I believe that automation comes to first and foremost serve developers to help them to fail fast and recover at low cost. And it might be a mindset change, but if we, as automation developers, provide efficient tools, developers can easily detect and fix regressions right after they are introduced, while we can be free for adding more and more automated coverage instead of wasting time on trying to understand why tests broke and looking for the root cause. So does it mean that we don't need testers? No, nothing can replace a tester who has fresh eyes on the feature to explore it and make sure that it complies with the product definition. And besides, usually there are more developers than testers, and testing workload is high, especially if we consider all those repetitive regression testing of earlier releases, which get higher with each subsequent release. By assuming basic functionality behavior, developers allow testers to concentrate on end-to-end flows, which leads to more extensive software coverage. But developers' workload is high as well, right? And investing in testing can slow down development progress, undoubtedly. With that said, slowing down is not bad. Customers prefer smaller but properly tested releases. Besides, if you choose a proper automation tool, testing won't take too much of your time. And lastly, following automation best practices will help you to scale up efficiently. So let's get to the main question. How do we choose a proper automation tool? There are so many tools out there. How do we even know which one is the best? So I think there is no such thing as the best. It should rather suit your own needs. So make sure that the tool supports what you want to cover. Are you testing web applications? Do you plan to run database queries as part of your test? If so, which kind of database is this? Are you performing API requests and validating responses to assure that your product functions properly? Do you want to automate mobile native flows? What are your other technological stack support needs for scaling test automation? So request trial access and conduct a proof of concept on your own scenario. I suggest that you do not rely on marketing materials, which usually demonstrate automation of a simple login flow, because most likely your tests are more sophisticated than that. So take an average complexity test case and see if the tool supports what you want to accomplish. Next, tool maturity. The idea behind a certain tool can be just great, but sometimes the tool is just not mature enough. To establish a stable automation project, framework and reliability is crucial. So create several scenarios as part of your tool evaluation and make sure that the only reason for failures and unexpectancies is that you missed something and not because the tool does not support scaling up. Also find companies and other users who use this tool and get their impression. What worked for them? What didn't? Check how this relates to your expectations and requirements. And the next aspect is the tool should allow you to create scenarios in an easy and yet scalable way. So during your proof of concept, evaluate the following tool features. Creation and usage of reusable components, or you can call them functions. Using parameters rather than hard-coded values in order to make functions more generic. Support for self-explanatory naming conventions to make reports easier to follow and new tests faster to create. And one of the most frequent questions, should it be coded or a codeless tool? In my opinion, so-called codeless automated testing, promising creating automation in the blink of an eye, is just too good to be true. This approach is usually based on the record and replay technique. When you click on the record button and whatever you do with your application is being recorded and is ready to be replayed once you're done. Sounds like a charm, fast, effortless. This is a definite advantage, but actually this is the only advantage. There is no way to do automation by recording only because first, such tests are too specific, which is a clear disadvantage for a long term. And if you remember at the beginning, we said that automation should provide value over time. Just think about this functional changes that your application might undergo. If a certain application area was changed and you have several tests in this area, you will need to go over them one by one and adjust them all. So this is not something that can scale up. And this is a clear disadvantage. And the second one is that only keyboard and mouse actions can be recorded. And a good test is much more than that. You can't record validations. This is something you'll need to specify manually. Sometimes you will need to use conditions and loops. If you run database queries, you will need to specify what is it that you want to query. API request is also something that you'll need to, not something that you can record. And so there are many more that must be specified manually, which means that recording is a very helpful start point, but it must be followed by enhancing the test to become more dynamic in order to allow going fast, even after having hundreds of tests. So as we can see from this example, efficient automation project requires investment. However, while it cannot be effortless, it will prove beneficial over time. Wait, but we said that adding tests shouldn't take much effort. So am I now saying that we should add another coding tool? So to clarify, only when you must use the coding part. And note that in most cases, and especially in the long run, you should be able to create tests by simply pulling existing functions that you created, that you have created during your automation project. But what you definitely can get rid of in order to create tests faster is around automation maintenance. And I'll get back to it. For now, let's take a look at the reporting tools. I mentioned earlier that to provide useful feedback, automation reports must be easy to understand. I personally prefer a visual output versus a long list of log lines. So here we can see an example of a test where each square, each box, or each block is a test step. And we can see, I'll use this example just to name some tool features that ensure clear feedback upon test failures. And as a result, they lead to a faster recovery. So first of them is the error message here. It is a self-explanatory error message, and it contains the expected, hope you can see it, might be too small, so I'll tell you that what's written here is that there is an expected result and what is the actual result. So it's easy to understand what went wrong. In addition, marking failed steps in red or in some other outstanding color will make them stand out among other steps. So it's also easy to understand what exactly went wrong with the flow, where did it fail. Screenshots of the applications, both the way application it was expected to be and the way it actually appeared, like you can see here, will also help you to understand what went wrong. It is quite handy to see what's different. In addition to taking screenshots at the time of a failure, screenshots taken for the succeeded steps are sometimes very helpful for troubleshooting as well. We can go several steps back and see what exactly went wrong in the flow. And there are some more helpful tools like fetching network logs from the browser to get more insights on the test flow will also provide additional value upon failure investigations. Some tools display a list of test parameters and their values at any point of test execution. So it is also quite handy while troubleshooting. So try all this. And the next point is integration with external tools. By external tool, I mean other tools used in your company as part of development lifecycle. So for example, a ticketing system. We use Jira, but I think it can be easily applied to any other ticketing system. So some tools allow quite handy feature, creating a ticket from the failure report by automatically converting the test into a list of steps to reproduce the scenario. So if this is a ticket, let me show it a bit bigger so you can see the description part here. And actually, this is our test with different test steps. And when we report a ticket from our automation tool, the automation tool takes all those steps, retrieves their descriptions, and generates a list of actions to reproduce the scenario and put this information inside the ticket. You can see it here. How helpful it is. First, it saves us time when we create a ticket. And second, it allows us to provide better information to anyone who would like to reproduce the scenario. And another helpful thing is that some tools allow embedding the link to the report into the ticket. It would allow everyone to easily reproduce the buggy flow. and double check the bug fix, for example, while releasing a QA bottleneck. Just think about how helpful it is if anyone can simply click the link and play the test again. Product managers can better understand and define priority more precisely. Developers can run it after they implemented the bug fix, just to make sure that after the bug fix, the test passes. And here's some additional information being generated automatically by those automation tools, like what browser was used for this test, what was the screen resolution, operating system, and so on. Additional integration with external tool can be integration with your CI/CD. In our case, this is Jenkins, but again, can be applied to any other. So let's say that a developer is done working on his task and he's ready to deploy his new code. Setting your CI/CD tool to trigger the relevant test execution and provide a report will help assuring that this new code does not introduce new bugs. Also publish daily dashboards based on your automation pipeline statuses. Along with a short summary, you can see here the example of our dashboard. So each unit here is a different application, and we can see, I hope you can see my mouse pointer, but every green part here is the application that had no regressions, and we can see here 4 applications where regressions were detected. So we can publish this. This is generated by Jenkins, by the way. We can publish this in our Slack channel along with a short summary to reflect the status of our applications to our stakeholders. You can add bug numbers, ticket numbers here, and provide some more information, who is on it. People can respond to it, and so on. So this is our automation lifecycle, from scenario recording through test enhancement, then execution, regression detection, reporting, and to action items. So now let's take a look at what I call around automation maintenance. And by this, I mean maintaining the automation tool itself, the infrastructure, managing different code libraries, setting up Dockers and environments, handling synchronization issues, different infrastructure configurations, and other technical framework maintenance issues which are essential for automation projects to succeed. And there are 2 ways to approach it. First, there are open source tools. And while they are invaluable for our software development community, it is important to remember that time required for maintaining them should also be considered. Not saying what's good, what's bad, you decide, but just take this into account. On the other hand, there are commercial tools that can do this part on your behalf. Or to put it simple, commercial tools will charge you for it, while with free tools, you will need to do the framework maintenance by yourself. Ultimately, free tools are not really free as it might seem. So consider this point while you evaluate automation tool, because it is a significant part of automation project in terms of required and effort investment. And you will need to invest anyway. So just think which of the investments is more expensive for you. Is it the tool cost or your team resources? Locators maintenance is mostly relevant for web applications. And actually, these are all elements, UI elements that our tests need to interact with, different buttons, text boxes, and whatever we see in our application. Each of those must be defined by its identifier. And when it gets changed by the application, we will need to come back and adjust it. So UI elements identifiers definition and maintenance is another significant ongoing effort. So consider choosing a framework which uses artificial intelligence to do this hard work for you. If the tool has embedded self-healing mechanism, it would help your tests to be tolerant to non-functional UI changes, which will save you significant maintenance time and effort. And the last part here is adoption simplicity, which is yet another aspect to consider. How easy is the tool setup and maintenance? Do they provide any onboarding? How soon can you start releasing efficient tests? Documentation, how clear and up-to-date is it? Do they have support? How can your idle time be shortened should you need assistance with the tool? I like this quote of quality advocate Beth Marshall, which says, automated software testing is like driving an automatic car. The car takes care of the checks like wipers, lights, and gears. This frees up the driver to focus more fully on the unexpected and more complex twists, turns, and bumps in the road. And I think it can be easily applied to choosing automation tool philosophy. Since many companies deal with the same pain points, it might make sense to consider a commercial tool which takes care of this indirect automation headache. Again, the hard work to build and maintain the framework cannot be skipped. But does it make sense to invent the wheel from scratch, wasting time and team resources, which in the end of the day convert to money, if you can rather invest in a solution which allows you to start increasing quality of your company products right away? Think about it. We at Trucks decided to take what I call around automation maintenance out of our scope and deliver it to external experts. So we chose automation platform called testing. And in the very high level, the effort is divided between Trucks and testing in a way that we focus on covering our business flows and testing take care of all the rest. While they deal with lots of above mentioned indirect automation issues, we gain precious time and provide higher value to our company. So from here, I'd like to take you to review some of the best practices. First, test maintenance. What is it and what can we do about it? So first, test maintenance is actually any changes required to make the broken test work again. This is how I would put it. And test maintenance is inevitable because application flow can always change, right? Having said that, we can definitely decrease maintenance effort if we always keep in mind while creating tests that we should get back to changing them as less as possible. And here are two examples how this can be achieved. First, follow the KISS principle. Keep it simple and stupid. Each test should cover a functional unit. Avoid creating long tests which test different things. It will make the report quite complex. And second, turn every single logical unit that can be utilized in other tests, and it can be one step or more, into a reusable component to keep it as a single place of change. Remember the example I gave you just earlier about the application which might change, and if you have several tests in this area, you will need to go and update them one by one. If you use reusable components, you will only need to make the update in one place, and all your tests will be adjusted immediately. Also create independent and isolated tests. Make sure that each test takes care of all of its prerequisites. Should it have some certain data in the database, make sure that the test preloads it. Should it be on a certain application page, make sure that the test navigates to this page as part of a test. Do not assume that the previous test in a suite created the necessary state. The order of tests can change, or the previous test can fail and it shouldn't impact the current test result. Remember automation relevance. If the previous change has an issue in the application, it should be reported as a malfunctioning. But if there is no issue in the current test, it should not be reported. And if it fails just because of the dependency that was created in between the tests, it's a bug in test design. So keep them isolated. Remember, time spent on maintenance is time that you can rather spend on adding new coverage. So investment at test development stage will help you keep the scale and not to bog down fixing numerous tests as time goes by. If we do so, automation remains stable over time. Unreliable, outdated, or irrelevant tests cause people to lose trust, and it makes automation unuseful. I strongly recommend following these key principles. First, prevent false alarms. Before you release a test to your CI/CD, make sure that not only does it pass when it is expected to pass, but also that it fails when it is expected to fail. To mock your data, change your parameter values, change your test flow just to simulate the failure and make sure that the test will alert upon failure. Remember, false negatives are our worst enemies. They quietly cause tests to pass without revealing the issue, and it directly impacts automation reliability. So we have tests, but they don't reveal issues. Why do we need such automation? Okay, so reliability is crucial. And also keep your dashboard as green as you can. This will make spotting regressions easier. Because if your dashboard is always green and then one day something appears as red, it's definitely something that has happened right now, right? It was a regression. If it is kept red day after day, then it's hard to know if it's something new or just old issues that no one has the time to deal with it. So how do we keep our dashboards green? First, request fixing detected issues at the earliest convenience. Okay, some failures can block the test from continuing. And so we can't even know if we have regressions there, if the test is blocked. So it's highly important to give priority to fixing these bugs. So take it with your decision makers and make sure that people have the right mindset for automation importance. Another suggestion is that in case of intentional application changes, not even a suggestion, it's a must, it's a rule, adjust the expected state in the corresponding test as soon as possible. Okay, there is no point to add new coverage if you have broken tests. So once application was changed intentionally and your test became outdated, leave whatever you do and fix your tests first. In addition, if a test reports an issue that is not planned to be fixed, delete the test or create a workaround. There is no need to report a failure if it doesn't lead to action items. Automation should provide insights, it should be helpful. If it reports things that are not interesting, then why report it? So this is about reliability and relevance. If a test failure doesn't cause the whole scenario to be blocked, the test should report the issue and continue, accumulating all occurred errors to present exhaustive information in the report. Okay, don't stop the test upon the first failure if it doesn't block the whole scenario. Reveal as many issues as you can. And another important thing is, how do we prioritize? Applications areas that need to be tested are numerous. There are new features, there are new bugs, there are more product developers than automation people. How do we even keep up with ongoing developments, making sure that everything is covered? So let me assure you, there will always be a gap. And the question is, what will be covered and what won't? Automating 100% of the coverage should not even be your goal. Choose your battles. Investment versus benefit is what should guide you in making these decisions. And here are some guiding thoughts to achieve best potential coverage at lowest cost. First, concentrate on functionality prior to checking visual appearance. Your customer would most likely prefer a working button, even if it has an unexpected color, right? Start with commonly used scenarios. Consult with your product owner, with your professional services, support team, or anyone who can provide insights on how your customers use your applications. Determine which kind of bugs should block a release and automate these areas first. Consider automation effort as opposed to manual effort. It is often worthwhile to leave certain scenarios in manual coverage. And just to remind you, fixing a malfunctioning test precedes adding a new test. Remember the importance of automation reliability. And the last point, knowledge sharing. In general, I wholeheartedly believe that automation projects should be managed quite similar to how any development project is managed. Hold internal learning sessions with other automation contributors of the same project. To avoid duplicate work, ask everyone to present the new components that he or she developed, which others can use. Share detected bugs to prevent submitting duplicate tickets. Grow together by raising challenges, troubleshooting, and suggesting solutions as a team. Record some of these sessions for future onboardings. Invest in test design and code reviews similarly to how it is done for software development for the exact same reasons. The only difference between automation project and any other development project is that automation has no QA. So have another pair of eyes on your tests. So here are some of the key takeaways I'd like you to remember to take forward from today's session. Automation feedback should be reliable, relevant, stable, easy to understand. It should serve all involved stakeholders, but first and foremost, it comes to help developers to fail fast and recover at low cost. And don't worry about slowing down. Smaller but better releases will keep your customers happy. In the long term, you slow down to go faster. Choose an automation tool that meets your needs. Examine the tool for its maturity and obtain feedback from other users' experience. Explore tool scaling up. Remember that fully codeless automation tools are too good to be true. Efficient automation projects cannot be effortless. And keep in mind that open source tools are not free if you consider the total cost of ownership. Assure that the tool provides self-explanatory reports. Verify its integration with other development lifecycle tools used in your company. Solution adoption simplicity will determine how soon the tool can start bringing value to your company and for how long its return on investment will last. Keep your tests modular, independent, and isolated to reduce the required maintenance. Report exhaustive information about applications malfunctioning, yet only issues which lead to action items. Manage automation project as any other software project, and always think how you can achieve best potential coverage at lowest cost. I want to wrap up saying again that to be efficient, test automation requires investment. However, when approached correctly, it makes a significant impact on delivering higher quality software in a shorter time. I hope it was a good use of your time and that you got some ideas that might be worth implementing in your automation projects. We will now open the floor to questions, but should you have any questions in future, I can be reached out on LinkedIn. So drop me a note so I'll know what background you come from. And you can also listen to the podcast that was recently recorded by Abstracta, where I share my thoughts about establishing automation and actually other work and life philosophy. I'm also about to publish a series of 3 blog posts on Medium, which I will summarize the information I shared today. So if you feel like you need a written summary of this session, stay tuned for it. All of these should pop up if you just Google for my name. So no need to remember the topics. So if there are any questions, then I'll be happy to take them. Back to you, Shiva.
Thanks, Katya. That was a great presentation.
Thank
And
you.
we'll just start with Krish Morthy. And the first one is, can we use Testim to test native mobile applications?
Yeah, they currently do not support, provide support for mobile native, but I know that they're working on it, so it probably should be available at some time in the future. I think it is better to check with them regarding their roadmap in this regard, but I know this is something that they're planning on.
Okay. And the second one is from Anna. When and where should automation scripts be run? We run them after unit tests and on staging.
So there are different strategies about running tests, different tests. We run all our tests on a nightly basis, and we have some kind of sanity subsets which run upon each deployment. So this way, our developers get fast feedback right after they deploy the code, or they can even run tests on their local environment before they push the code. So we just don't want to run all our tests for each deployment just to not block the deployments, the pipelines. So we run everything every night. So at most, the day after, we will see the regressions, but most important regressions will be found upon each deploy. Hope it answered the question. If not,
Yeah.
let me know.
And so who's responsible for maintaining the failed tests in Jenkins pipeline?
So this is a philosophy question. I think that automation developers should be in charge of it. There is no single truth about it. Just in order for developers to use automation, like not to add more work for them, but so that they can concentrate on their main developments. They can see the reports, they can understand the report. I will still keep the responsibility of maintaining in the automation developers like forum, and make sure that everything is communicated to the other participants of the same projects, just to avoid this duplicate work that I was explaining.
Mm-hmm. So another question from same Krish. When time is limited during sprint cycles or due to deadline pressures, can the approach be use a codeless test automation tool?
So you can do it, but it will not serve you for a long run. It's important to understand, by the way, maybe this is not something I mentioned, so thank you for the question, that automation cannot be done as a side job whenever you have the time. It's something that time should be allocated for it. So you can use those low code tools, I would say, low code, not fully codeless, which will allow you to create automation without knowing, having strong background in programming languages. You can record it, you can enhancement, you can make it work. If you want to create fast tests using codeless tools just for one time, then why create automation? Just perform the manual and that's it.
Okay. So here's one from Zohail. I believe I pronounced the name correctly. And I think he pretty much liked whatever you covered in the presentation. And if opting for a codeless automation platform, what would be the key deciding factor for yourself?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, if opting for a codeless automation platform, what would be the key deciding factor?
So make sure that I think I covered it, but I can repeat it. Make sure that after recording, you still are able to make your test generic, based on parameters, based on reusable components. So you don't just record each and every test, because again, if you have several tests in the area that is getting changed, you will need to maintain all those tests. And the further we go, the more tests you have, you will have more and more tests to maintain. So if you think at the beginning, when you create your test project, how do you create it so you don't need to get back to it in order to change it? And because otherwise you can just lose control. You'll find yourself just maintaining, changing tests. So make sure that the codeless tool is not fully codeless, that it still allows using parameters, using some logics, okay, to add validations of different types that your applications need to cover, like database, for example. Does it allow even going to database? Not all tools allow it.
Okay.
Hope it answers.
Yeah. And this is from Nikita. How to handle the automation framework when there is no data consistency on the site, like an e-commerce websites where the data is keep on changing, how to maintain the reliability.
So you can run your automation on your environments where you populate the data into the database. Another way to do it, if you want. Sorry, I was muted since the beginning.
Yeah, I guess so.
Sorry for that. Okay, so if you want to create automation for scenarios where your data changes constantly, then you can build your validations, like the expected result of will be whatever you have in your database, and the actual result can be what you see in the UI. Okay, so you logged into your application, you perform some actions. Let's say you added something to, and you got some number as a result. Get the expected result from your database and the actual result from your application and compare them. So you're not dependent on the data. And even if the data will change, your test will still remain stable, and it will still work because it's not dependent.
Mhm. And so another one from Ido. Why not run all the tests on each deployment? How long does it take to run all the tests?
It depends on your application. If your application, like how much time does it take for your flow to run in the application? If it takes seconds, then fine. If it takes minutes, then automation can't decrease this time. It will need to wait. I'm talking about web applications, but I think it can apply to anything else as well. So it will need to wait until the elements appear on the screen and then to interact with them. So it depends on your applications. It depends on how many tests you need. I suggest creating subsets like sanity suites, whatever is more critical for you to check, and whatever you can, like if you have hundreds or thousands of tests, you will most probably not run them upon each deployment. It will postpone the deployments. It will cause delays, and in the end of the day, if automation will not help, but it will be a blocker for releases.
Okay. So here's the final one. What other test framework you use apart from TestHim to make it more feature proof?
Well, we use SOAP UI for API testing to cover the API's flows, because we all know this pyramid where API tests should take significant part of the testing. So we use this. We use Selenium as well. And that's it currently.
Okay, so one last one from Nikita before we wrap up. How to reduce the wait and Ajax time in the scripts, which makes them slow the entire execution?
You mean the synchronization issues with the application?
Yeah, I guess so. Do you want to explain that, Nikita, further? Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So there are tools, like I can say in testing, for example, the tool that we use, probably not the only one, but this is what I like very much about it, is that take care of all those synchronization issues. We don't edit for each and every command. So we just, they have their artificial intelligence mechanisms to add those implicit, explicit, whatever weights that are needed. So we don't even deal with it. This is why our test creation is so efficient, I would say, in terms of the effort that it takes.
Cool. Perfect, Katya. I hope we answered everything. And like Katya said, if you have any other questions, please feel free to get in touch with her on the LinkedIn. And the recording to this session will be available in qatouch.com/QA hyphen masterclass. And it's not a gated content, so just go ahead and watch them. You can also watch it on YouTube. Anything else you want to wrap up, Katya?
Love automation, love what you do, and spread the knowledge. If you learn something, then share it with others. We're a big community, so let's share and learn together. Thank you for being here today.
For sure, for sure. That's a great one for Tuesday morning. And thank you so much for joining us on this session, Katya. It was great learning and looking forward to something in the future as well. You have a good day. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.